Now, with new details on what could be the most expensive divorce in history, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder and the richest man in the world, is calling it quits with his wife MacKenzie after 25 years.
He built an empire worth hundreds of billions, but couldn't save a marriage built on 25 years of loyalty. Jeff Bezos wasn't always the man behind super yachts and diamond tuxedos. He started in a dusty garage with a dream, a laptop, and a woman named MacKenzie. She believed in him before the world knew his name. She edited his pitches, managed his finances, and stood silently beside him as Amazon exploded into a global beast. And just when they had everything, he risked it all. In 2019, the world found out that Jeff Bezos wasn't just launching rockets. He was hiding an affair. The fallout? A $38 billion divorce, the biggest in human history. But what hurt most wasn't the money, it was the betrayal. And yet, just a few years later, the same man who shattered the perfect partnership would sail into Venice on a 417-foot yacht to marry someone new, in a wedding that cost more than most people will see in a lifetime. So the question is, how did Jeff Bezos go from heartbreak to high society? And was this fairy tale wedding really about love or about rewriting a legacy? The fall of a power couple, Jeff and MacKenzie Scott. For 25 years, Jeff Bezos and MacKenzie Scott weren't just a married couple, they were a team. A quiet, calculating, brilliant team. In 1994, when Bezos left his job on Wall Street to chase a wild idea called Amazon, MacKenzie was the one who drove him cross-country from New York to Seattle. While he typed away on a laptop in the passenger seat, she mapped their future from behind the wheel. She wasn't just his wife. She was his first investor, his editor, his accountant. She even interviewed Amazon's first employees. While Jeff dreamed of an online bookstore that would change the world, MacKenzie did what most people overlook. She made that world possible. They lived modestly at first. Jeff famously built his first desk from a wooden door. MacKenzie handled the books while raising their 4 children, barely visible to the press but instrumental behind the scenes. They were the ultimate startup couple. One focused on vision, the other on stability. Their dynamic was unshakable, or so it seemed. MacKenzie was content staying in the background, avoiding headlines and interviews, while Jeff evolved into a tech titan. His growing empire demanded more of his time, more of his identity. At galas, on panels, and in boardrooms, Jeff became a symbol of ambition and dominance. But at home, the disconnect was growing. The intimacy they once shared, built on shared goals and long nights, was fading into formality. Then came the headlines that no one expected, but everyone consumed. In 2019, the National Enquirer published intimate text messages between Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez. The story went viral overnight. It wasn't just gossip. It was a public unmasking of the world's richest man, a scandal involving alleged blackmail, accusations against a media empire, and a messy unraveling of the most quietly powerful couple in tech. Bezos took to Medium with a bombshell post accusing the Enquirer's parent company of extortion. Suddenly, what began as tabloid fodder escalated into a media war involving lawyers, investigators, and government scrutiny. But even as Bezos fought publicly, MacKenzie remained silent. She didn't deny the rumors. She didn't seek sympathy. Instead, she filed for divorce, swiftly and without spectacle. The settlement was historic. She walked away with roughly 4% of Amazon shares, worth nearly $38 billion. But what she truly walked away from was a quarter-century of loyalty, compromise, and sacrifice. No books, no interviews, no TV specials, just a dignified exit. And while the world expected a scorched earth response, MacKenzie gave them grace. A woman betrayed in front of billions chose dignity over drama. It stunned people. It inspired them. It made them look at her not as the woman Bezos left behind, but the one who didn't need him to begin with. As Bezos leaned further into his new life, launching rockets, posing for paparazzi, building a different brand, MacKenzie began building something of her own. And it wasn't loud, it wasn't luxurious, but it would soon eclipse every yacht, headline, and camera flash he could ever buy. In private, she began distancing herself from everything that defined her past life. She dropped the Bezos name, became MacKenzie Scott, and began quietly assembling a team of advisors, not to start a company, but to give her fortune away. She studied philanthropy, she listened more than she spoke, and when she finally made her first public move, it wasn't to attack or retaliate, it was to transform. While Jeff was being photographed aboard mega yachts and planning space launches, MacKenzie was writing checks to food banks, education reformers, and housing projects. She gave without strings, refused to be idolized, and insisted on avoiding photo ops. The contrast couldn't have been more striking. Jeff had launched a rocket, but MacKenzie had launched a movement. The rise of Lauren Sanchez, from tabloid target to Mrs. Bezos. While the world watched MacKenzie disappear into quiet philanthropy, Lauren Sanchez stepped directly into the storm. Her name was suddenly everywhere, in headlines, in gossip blogs, in tweets that dissected her past, her motives, her style, her smile. Some saw her as a homewrecker. Others saw her as a woman finally being seen. Before the affair, Lauren Sanchez was already successful in her own right, a former news anchor, Emmy-winning TV host, helicopter pilot, and media personality. She was married to Hollywood agent Patrick Whitesell and well-connected in elite circles. But she wasn't a household name. Not like this. The affair made her infamous. In the eyes of the public, she became the symbol of Bezos' midlife reinvention. The once geeky CEO was now dating a glamorous pilot with ties to Hollywood. And the transformation was immediate. Bezos changed his wardrobe, his posture, even his presence. Gone were the bland button-ups, in came fitted tuxedos, selfies on yachts, and public affection. Together, they weren't just a couple. They were a statement. Critics didn't hold back. Some called her a gold digger. Others questioned the timing, the authenticity, the chemistry. But neither Lauren nor Jeff responded to the noise. They just kept showing up, smiling at events, vacationing on his $500 million yacht, Koru, and slowly reframing the narrative. Over time, the headlines shifted. What started as scandal turned into acceptance. Bezos was no longer the betrayed husband. He was the man in love, taking control of his next chapter. And Lauren? She transformed from tabloid target to center stage presence. Her fashion was praised. Her interviews increased. Her influence grew. And then came the engagement. In May 2023, aboard the very yacht that had become their floating palace, Bezos proposed. The ring? Estimated at 30 to 40 carats, a rare pink diamond, worth several $1 million. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't quiet. It was exactly what their relationship had become, larger than life. They didn't rush to marry. They waited, planned, hosted a private engagement party in Beverly Hills with Oprah, Salma Hayek, Kris Jenner, and Barbra Streisand in attendance. They weren't just building a relationship. They were curating a legacy. By the time the wedding date was leaked, the world was watching again. But this time, it wasn't scandal they were tuning in for. It was spectacle. June 27, 2025, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez turned Venice into their personal fairy tale. The location? San Giorgio Maggiore, a private historic island off the coast of Venice, known for its marble basilicas and Renaissance-era architecture. But for 3 days, it became the epicenter of luxury, secrecy, and spectacle. The wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was a curated experience. Estimated to have cost between $50 and $76 million, it included yacht arrivals, luxury hotels, paparazzi blockades, and elite-level security. But here's the twist. It wasn't even legally binding. According to city officials, no formal request for legal recognition had been submitted in Italy. That meant, somewhere in the US, quietly and off-camera, Bezos and Sanchez likely tied the knot legally before ever stepping foot in Venice. But the celebration? That was real and unforgettable. Lauren wore a custom Dolce & Gabbana haute couture gown. A high-neck, corseted lace masterpiece, reportedly inspired by Sophia Loren's dress from the 1958 film Houseboat. It took over 900 hours to create and featured delicate silk chiffon-covered buttons running down the front. She completed the look with a dramatic veil and vintage diamond earrings. Over the course of the evening, she changed outfits 2 more times. Jeff, meanwhile, wore a black tuxedo and bow tie with a white shirt. Simple, sharp, and deliberate. Later, for the final party, he swapped the classic tux for a black suit and open-collar shirt, matched to Lauren's soft pink Versace gown. The ceremony itself was surprisingly intimate, around 200 guests, with approximately 70 being close friends or family. But the names on the list? Anything but ordinary. Oprah Winfrey, Kim and Khloe Kardashian, Leonardo DiCaprio, Bill Gates, Queen Rania of Jordan, Tom Brady, Orlando Bloom, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Mick Jagger, Karlie Kloss. Even Sydney Sweeney was spotted in Venice. The controversy: protests, power, and the price of privilege. For every spotlight cast on the glamour, a shadow followed in its wake. While Jeff and Lauren's wedding lit up Venice with designer gowns and million-dollar yachts, a very different scene unfolded just across the canal. Protesters, locals, activists, and climate advocates took to the streets, armed with banners and fury. They weren't protesting love, they were protesting what the wedding represented. To many Venetians, the Bezos celebration wasn't a fairy tale. It was a reminder of growing inequality, unchecked tourism, and the gentrification of their beloved city. The Arsenale, once a medieval shipyard of laborers and sailors, had now become a fortress of luxury. And the people who once walked its grounds now stood outside its gates, tossed effigies into the water, or attempted to blockade canals. At one point, over 1,000 people gathered near the Venice train station, chanting and marching in protest of what they called the Amazonification of Venice. There were whispers that venues had to be switched last minute due to security threats. Local police and private guards patrolled the city, not just to keep out the paparazzi, but to keep out the people. And yet, while the city erupted outside, inside the gates, the party continued. The disconnect couldn't have been more surreal. It wasn't just about money. It was about symbolism. Jeff Bezos, the 4th richest man in the world, was seen by some not just as a groom, but as a metaphor, a man who conquered retail, space, and now romance on his own terms. But in doing so, he also became a lightning rod for criticism about power, privilege, and perception. Still, not everyone was angry. Venice's mayor welcomed the wedding, calling it a boost for the local economy. According to officials, Bezos made multi-million euro donations to local institutions, and some locals cheered on the spectacle, delighted by the buzz, the cameras, the chance to glimpse Hollywood in their backyard. But for others, it was hard to ignore the tension. How one weekend of excess had split the city in two, the celebrated and the silenced. And as Lauren and Jeff kissed under the Venetian sunset, the question lingered: was this a love story or the ultimate PR performance? The legacy: rebranding Bezos, one wedding at a time. For Jeff Bezos, the wedding wasn't just a personal celebration, it was a strategic spectacle. A reintroduction to the world, not as a scandalized billionaire, but as a reformed romantic, a cultural icon, and above all, a man in control of his own narrative. This wasn't just about love, it was about image. After years of headlines dominated by corporate controversies, anti-labor criticisms, and his messy affair, Bezos was no longer content being defined by others. This wedding, staged like a Hollywood epic and curated with the precision of a royal coronation, was a turning point in how the world saw him. From Vogue's exclusive coverage to social media blackouts, everything about the event was designed to tell a new story, one where Bezos is no longer the ruthless businessman, but the gracious host, the generous donor, the man in love. And it worked. Even critics couldn't ignore the symbolism. The wedding location, San Giorgio Maggiore, wasn't just romantic. It was historic, private, prestigious. The kind of place you choose when you're building legacy, not just throwing a party. Lauren's transformation from tabloid curiosity to Vogue bride added to the narrative arc. Together, they weren't just a couple, they were a brand reboot in motion. Bezos, who once made headlines for being stingy with philanthropy, donated millions to local Venetian causes before his ceremony. He didn't publicize it. Word got out later, exactly how a strategic philanthropist operates when rebranding, from the sweeping drone shots of Venice to the parade of celebrity power and curated opulence. Every detail was rehearsed for impact. The message was clear. This is not just the world's fourth richest man. This is a man rewriting history, his way. And just like that, the world stopped whispering about the affair and started talking about the fairy tale. But fairy tales come with endings. The question is, did Bezos close a chapter on scandal or open a new one in spectacle? Because while the vows were exchanged in whispers, the message echoed around the globe. Jeff Bezos is no longer just building rockets, he's launching a legacy. Conclusion: the fairy tale, the fallout, and the final question. Jeff Bezos' wedding wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning cloaked in lace and legend. For every kiss under the Venetian sunset, there was a camera clicking. For every vow exchanged, a million opinions followed. Some saw love, others saw theater. But what's undeniable is this: Bezos didn't just marry Lauren Sanchez, he married a new chapter, one where scandal fades, legacy shines, and the story he tells the world is entirely his own. He started with MacKenzie, built an empire, and lost a marriage. Now, with Lauren, he's not just building rockets, he's building myth. But myths are fragile. The world will keep watching. Every move, every post, every appearance will be scrutinized. Was this truly the fairy tale redemption, or just the next episode in a saga of money, power, and reinvention? Only time will tell. Because while the yacht sails on, and the lights of Venice dim, the legend of Jeff Bezos has only just begun.